marked as risky or may not be accessing their corporate data from their standard location. So you get a lot more flexibility and granularity into control using Azure MFA, as well as the flip side of being able to run your security audits and your reports, as well as investigate any malicious activity that you might see.
One thing I want to call out here, Paul, is that custom greetings during authentication phone calls. A lot of people think that customizing your portal login page is merely an aesthetic thing or that it's brand related. But by customizing your login screen, what you're actually doing is adding a layer of security based on your users' habits. Is that they log in every day with this, they see your logo, and if they do get a phishing attack and click through to a link that's trying to do some credential harvesting, and they notice that the login is different, then they'll have time to pause. And so the custom greetings during authentication phone calls prevents somebody from performing a man-in-the-middle attack where they perform a fake authentication phone call in order to get the authenticator codes. And so anytime you have that customization, what you're doing is you're adding what's called habitual security into that layer. And so I think that's a really useful feature that most people don't consider as being really security oriented and more being a brand. So it's definitely something you want to configure.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for touching on that. And like you said, the importance here is, the more power you can give to the end user to help them protect their own account and their own data is, it makes everyone's lives easier, especially IT admins. So being able to give them that sense of familiarity and then, an obvious sign that they might not be logging into the right place or responding to the right challenge is, another step in the right direction. So very good point there, Sean. And speaking of making everyone's lives easier, anyone who's been in IT or who's been on a help desk, this is going to be a very big relief for you because Microsoft offers, obviously, multi-factor authentication and self-service password reset. Now, self-service password reset is just that. For any of your cloud-only accounts, you can enable SSPR for all of your users right away. For anyone who has a hybrid situation set up, you just need to make some adjustments on your Azure AD Connect service in order to allow password write back. But can you imagine taking the need to have to reset user passwords off of your plate or off of your help desk's plate? You're going to open up hours and hours a week for people to do other things and focus on, enhancing other products. So I think that would be something we'd all like to see in the rearview mirror. Now, what Microsoft has done prior to August 15th, 2020, you needed to manually enable this feature. And after any tenants that are created after that date, we'll have this feature enabled automatically. And this is the combined registration for SSPR and CAMFA. Now, without this enabled, the user goes into login the first time. And if they've got both of these features enabled for their account, they'll go through a screen that says more information is required. They'll enter in their username, their phone number, enter in their email address, validate everything, and then hit OK. And then they get another screen that says more information is required. And that's for the MFA side of things. And obviously that can be confusing for users. I just entered this information in. Why am I being asked twice? So now Microsoft allows the combined registration where they register for both SSPR and CAMFA all in one sitting, which makes everyone's lives easier. That's less phone calls to you. That's less phone calls to the help desk, and empowers the user to be able to take these actions into their own hands. Now, what I want to do is go through and do a quick demo of how to enable that combined registration. It's literally just a switch in your Azure portal, as well as do an overview of the what if tool that is available to you for conditional access and multi-factor authentication.
Excellent. Thank you, Paul.
Sure. All right. And so here I am in the Azure portal. I'm logged in with a global admin account right now. This is your standard splash page for when you log into the Azure tenant for anyone who's familiar with it. And what we'll go through and do is I will show you how to go through and enable that combined registration we were just talking about. And then we'll jump over to the what if tool, and I'll show you a couple scenarios of how you can use that to help plan or help audit sign-ins, or if someone says, hey, I'm unable to log in, you can also use that to determine if there's something affecting their account. For the combined registration, for anyone who has a tenant that was created prior to August 15th, 2020, which I'm assuming is probably 99% of you, once you get into your Azure AD side of things, you'll go down to user settings, and there's going to be a link here that says Manage User Feature Preview Settings. If you click on this, this is what will allow you to enable the combined registration experience. Now, you can, if you're just targeting certain accounts, obviously if you have your service accounts, you want to target just the groups that don't include those service accounts, you can do that, or you can do it for all users within the tenant. And for this purpose, we're going to go ahead and click on all here and then click on save. And that is it. That is one of the easiest features that you can enable, and it takes 3 clicks to be able to do. Highly recommend it, especially if you're using both SSPR and multi-factor authentication. So now we'll jump over to reviewing the what if tool for the conditional access policies. I will be using our perennial troublemaker in Megan Bowen to be our test here, our guinea pig here, to show you the policy that we have enabled and the different ways that this could affect her login, depending on how she's doing it, where she's doing it from, anything of that nature. One thing I do want to touch on earlier was we were talking about named locations. In this situation, we've got a corporate office IP range, which you can see is marked as trusted. And we have our safe countries, which is the United States. Unsafe countries is every single other country. And as a note here, only IP ranges can be marked as trusted. You obviously don't want to set an entire country as a trusted location and then set up a policy to allow all access to that trusted location. You want to be able to, you want to have your loopholes as down as tight as possible and fill up any gaps. So this is the way to do that. Now, if we jump over to conditional access here, this, for anyone who's familiar, gives you your breakdown of the policies that you have. They'll show you the policies that you have on, enabled, or in report-only mode, which report-only mode is a feature that Microsoft released not too long ago, where before it was either on or off. Report-only mode allows you to go through and test the way these policies are going to interact with your user logins before enabling it. Otherwise, you weren't able to use this what if tool. But now that they are there, we'll go ahead and click on what if. So like I said, right now, Megan Bowen is in a group called Conditional Access Include, which is allowing her to access the corporate data anytime she's in the office or while she is at home, as long as she's pulling a US IP address. So obviously, the first thing you'll have to do here is select the user that you want to either audit or test on. We'll go ahead and select on Miss Megan Bowen here, any cloud apps, and you can specify this and modify this to be as specific as you possibly want, or you can leave it a little broader to just kind of see if there's going to be any other different reactions here. But for the sake of time and whatnot, we're going to leave this to any cloud apps. And then I'm going to list the randomized US IP address that I made here for the corporate offices. And then a thing to note here is if you put an IP address in here, you also have to put the associated country in there. So that the what if tool is able to determine, one, if it's an IP address from that country, and then 2, what policies would apply to that. And for the rest of the settings here, I'm going to leave all else alone. And we're going to say Megan is just simply trying to log in using from the United States from the corporate office. So if we click on what if here, you will see, there we go, require MFA when in safe countries, trusted locations. And that's the result that we expected to see. And now you can see here the MFA for admins. If she had a global admin role applied to her, that would also take effect. And that MFA for admins is going to be regardless of where she is. She can be in the office or she could be at home. It's going to require MFA, but the one that will affect her for this situation is going to be require MFA when in safe countries or trusted locations. Now, let's say Megan has a 2-week vacation and she's jetting off to Costa Rica, and she wants to go see the world and be able to still do work while she's sitting on the beach and drinking her Mai Tai or her margarita. What you would do is you'd set up a policy to kind of pair with the block from unsafe countries. You'd set up a policy to require MFA when in unsafe countries, and you target a group like travel exceptions. So we'll go over here and we'll say Megan is in Costa Rica. This is the IP address that she's currently pulling, and we'll update this to show Costa Rica. And now we'll do what if. And now at the top here, you see require MFA for travel exceptions. This is going to allow her to access your corporate data while she's in an unsafe country, but still have that layer of security where she has to respond to a challenge in order to access that data. Now, let's say on the flip side of this, Megan went to Costa Rica, but she didn't give anyone in IT a heads up, so she's not in this travel exceptions group. What we'll do here is we'll go ahead and remove her from this group. And then I'm going to perform the same what if on her. So same IP address from Costa Rica. Now you see block access. That's because the policies that we have set up, Costa Rica is not listed as one of those safe countries, so she's not able to access that corporate data while she's pulling that IP address. And as a side note here as well, is if you do pull a what if and you see 3 policies listed, and all of the policies show that these would apply, it is the most restrictive policy that will apply across the board. So if you have a policy that says require MFA, you have a policy that says require hybrid Azure AD join, you have a policy that says block, the block policy will be the one that takes precedence over the other 2 policies there.
Cool.
Now, the last thing I want to go over here in terms of what if is, let's say, Megan has shifted roles and she should only be working on her day-to-day activities and using corporate data while she's in the office. And then when she goes home, she doesn't need to be working or anything like that. She needs to be focusing on family time or binge watching something on Netflix. What we'll do is we'll throw her into this group that we've created called hourly employees. And then I'm going to update this to this randomized IP address I pulled from the US. And this is going to be, let's say this is her home IP address. We'll go ahead and update the country to the United States. And if you perform the what if one more time here, so you see require multi-factor authentication when in safe countries. And then the next one down says block hourly employees outside corporate network. So that is the policy that would take precedence. Both of these are applying to her because she's in both groups. So she's prompted for MFA when she's in the office, but she's blocked from access when she's outside of the office. And this is just a really useful tool, like I said, to use just to test if all of your policies are in report only mode and you throw some people into the groups that are being applied to those policies and you want to see what those would look like if they signed in from a certain location or using a certain app or device. You can use that. I think this is a pretty underutilized tool, but this also helps with troubleshooting. If someone calls in and says, I got in a message that says you can't get there from here, you run this what if tool and you can determine if there's a policy that is applying that is.